Loki?
If it were easy, everyone would do it.
I love Loki as a character because he's so unpredictable. You're kind of rooting for him, and he's like just about to do the right thing, and then he changes his mind, and it's sort of, it's disappointing, but it's like the kind of disappointment you keep going back from. It's like a bad boyfriend almost, that you're like, I can change him.
Surprise.
So imagine what it was like when Mackenzi Lee found out Disney-owned Marvel wanted her to write a young adult trilogy on some of its anti-heroes' origins. And the first book would be about Loki.
I would start writing and I'd have a minute and be like, okay, you need to actually get back to your real work and stop writing your fan fiction. And I was like, this is my real work.
It wasn't long before that feeling of excitement was joined by pressure. Remember, Marvel didn't make up Loki. He's a Norse god. People have been telling versions of his story for centuries.
I saw somewhere that you wrote 4 versions of the book. Is that right?
At the least, yeah.
At the least?
I think there were maybe more.
Is that common for you to write that many?
Not that many, no. This was a unique book, and I think part of it was I psyched myself out really hard.
But here's what you need to know about Mackenzi Lee. She does not give up. In middle school, there wasn't a drama club, so she started one. It didn't have money to buy a play.
So I just wrote one, and then we had a faculty advisor who just sort of wanted to sit in the back of the auditorium, and so I was like, I will also direct the play. So I've always been that kind of person that just like, if I want something to happen, I go out and I make it happen.
Not bad for someone who once hated reading.
My associations with reading were all very negative. It was things that were assigned to me in school, and I didn't like classics, and I couldn't get through them, and I felt really stupid when I read them.
Now she's writing to fix that problem, one historical fiction book at a time.
The big pinch me moment was the first time I saw copies of the book with my name and then sort of the Marvel logo right next to it, and I had a little bit of a moment. So yeah, it was a wild thing to get to be part of, and it remains just like an incredibly cool thing to get to do.
So how did you go then about writing it? Because like you said, you'd been a fan, so you'd seen the movies, and there's all the comic books, there's the mythology. Did you surround yourself with all of that, or did you have a picture of Tom Hiddleston like right next to you as you're writing?
I mean, yes, but for other reasons. I sort of surrounded myself with everything as much as possible, and then ended up kind of banishing a lot of it. I got so obsessed with wanting to read and watch and consume every version of Loki that had ever existed, and then wanted to try and make my Loki all of those things.
And they're very different.
And every sort of incarnation of him that has existed through Marvel, through the Norse mythology, through just like fiction in general, every version is so different because every writer brings their own spin to it. And so I realized that in trying to do sort of imitations of Al Ewing's Loki and Neil Gaiman's Loki and Tom Hiddleston's Loki, I wasn't bringing my voice and my take on the character was sort of getting lost in all of that noise and trying to make him everything to everyone. So what I ended up doing in the end was doing a ton of research and then throwing it all out the window. So
now you have this amazing, you'd be a great trivia person on Loki now.
Yeah, I know. Well, just because of what I write, which is primarily historical fiction, I know a little bit about a lot of things and like totally useless things. So I was at a movie with my parents and there was a trailer for a film that was set sometime, I don't remember the year, sometime in the past. And as soon as the trailer ended, I just had to lean over to my mom and I was like, okay, so obviously that's not going to be period accurate because they use the word okay in it and they would never have used the word okay. She's like, you need to sit somewhere else. I'm really fun at parties. Everybody loves me.
This group that was fact-checking your book. What was that like? You've never done anything like that, I'm sure, before.
No,
right?
I always wish I had someone, like I want someone to go through my books and be like, this word wasn't used in because I sit when I write with like a dictionary open with Merriam-Webster open, and like every word I use I type into Merriam-Webster to see when the origin of it was and when it was first used. But with Marvel, they literally have people who have the canon of Marvel that it sounds like a superhero comic because they're like charged with the guardianship of the canon of Marvel, and they will go through and say like, well, this contradicts with this, and in series A of issues of Agent of Asgard, he does this, which directly, and I think I had it easier because it's an origin story. It's much earlier than we've seen Loki in the canon, and also at this point, there's almost no continuity in Marvel because there's so many different versions of it and so many different writers working on so many different facets of it. So I think they've they've maybe loosened up a little bit with that. But then it's also really cool to be able to email somebody at Marvel and say, like, can you send me everything you know about the Nornstones, which is an artifact that appears in the book. And then I get like literally an encyclopedia page that like, here's everything that's in the comics or the movies or the films or anything about Nornstones. Here's every time they appear. Here's what we learn about them in this comic and what we learn about them. So it's a vast network of people who know much, much more than I do.
Mackenzi Lee, one of the most authentic authors we've ever interviewed. Perhaps that's why readers like her and her books so much. She can make just about anything, anytime, any place relatable.